The recession hit in Iceland, they were sitting in a much worse situation than we are now, but they handled it a little differently. In fact, they completely revolted. They rebelled, they went nuts. They went down to the parliament and they started throwing rocks. In fact, what happened next, according to a Ron Paul article, was extraordinary. The belief that citizens had to pay for the mistakes of a financial monopoly, that an entire nation must be taxed to pay off private debts, was shattered, transforming the relationship between citizens and their political institutions and eventually driving Iceland's leaders to the side of their constituents. The head of state, Ólafur Ragnar Grímsson, refused to ratify the law that would have made Iceland citizens responsible for its bankers' debt and accepted calls for a referendum. Obviously, they're not drinking the fluoride over in Iceland, because then in March 2010, they passed a referendum with a 93% vote against repayment of the debt. The people just said no. Iceland chose the route of protecting its populace, the taxpayer, from absorbing more debt so that the global banking oligarchy could be made whole. With the support of a furious citizenry, the government launched civil and penal investigations into those responsible for the financial crisis. They went out with arrest warrants for the ex-president. They actually went and indicted the prime minister and arrested the top 3 CEOs of the top banks. That's how Iceland handled it. So, this is what else they did. They forgave the debt of a quarter of their citizens. 25% of their citizens, they just said, no, you don't have to pay it back. And for those people that were underwater in their mortgages, over 110%, they forgave those too. Now, they didn't take that very well, the bankers that control everything. They threatened them, they intimidated them, they said, when you go down, we're not going to give you any loans. But guess what? They didn't go down. In fact, they flourished. On top of it, they wrote a new constitution. This is what they did. The people of Iceland elected 25 citizens from among 522 adults not belonging to any political party, but recommended by at least 30 other citizens. This document was not the work of a handful of politicians, but was actually written on the internet. The constituents' meetings were streamed online, and the citizens could send their comments and suggestions, witnessing the document as it took shape. The Constitution that eventually emerged from this participatory democratic process will be submitted to Parliament for approval after the next elections. So they rewrote the Constitution. They actually threw the politicians out. They got people, normal people, that the other people at all decided that these were the best people, and then they put it online. I mean, talk about democratic. Okay, so how did that turn out? Everyone said it was going to go down. It was this big experiment because we really haven't heard, right? Well, I'll tell you how it turned out. They're flourishing. Their GDP has rebounded. In fact, they're doing better than the EU and most of the developing nations right now. And according to the Fitch rating on Bloomberg, the unorthodox crisis policy response in Iceland has succeeded. So the takeaway is QE1 didn't work, QE2 didn't work, and QE3 is certainly not going to work. Hyperinflating our dollar is not going to work. What will work? What did work is Iceland's program. So they sent policemen in to arrest the bankers, and they succeeded. They're doing great. So I say, let's do what Iceland did.